Okay guys, in the previous video I explained component inheritance where we talked about parent component, child component, sibling components and variant. How the child component or children or instances inherit characteristics or properties from their main or default component, which we will also call the parent component. Okay, so now we are going to be looking at component interaction in Figma, which is mostly used to create animations and interaction in a UI UX design. So component interaction can be done from a parent component and a variant. So I'm going to use this button as an example. So I designed a button like the button we designed in the previous lesson. So I deleted the variant and the children. So to add interaction or to animate this, one of the interactions we can create is called the hover animation, like button hover animation. Alright, so hover animation such as this is hover. Alright, so how do we do something like this on a UI UX project, either website, mobile app or digital product design prototype? Alright, so first of all I'm going to add a frame, although we don't usually add hover animation on mobile apps. We usually have it on website or desktop apps or web apps, but I'm going to add a mobile app frame, iPhone 16 and 17 Pro Max. And now let me resize this a bit. Okay, so now I want to add a hover animation. First of all, let me add an instance of this child. So I'll go over to this parent, rather I'll go over there and then get an instance of that and put it in here. Okay, so it's still quite large, but I'm going to use it like that. So I'll come over here and how do I add the animation? Now let me open this on preview. Let's see. Okay guys, we have a preview. So if I hover on this, nothing is going to happen yet. That's because there is no variant and there are no interactions, okay, on this component at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a variant to this default component. Alright, so add a variant just below it. Alright, and then change the properties of the variant, like the color, like we did in the previous tutorial. So I'll go over to the fill and then pick a different color on the variant. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is to activate the default component. I like renaming my component, so I'll come over here and call it the default state. Alright, then over here I'm going to rename it from variant 2 to hover state. Okay, default state and hover state under the properties right there. Okay, now how about the interaction? Like we saw in the previous video, we can actually change the states from here. I can change it from the default state to the hover state. This is going to change the component and also change it on the preview. Okay, so but now I want us to add this hover animation so that once we hover on the button it changes to the variant. Okay, so I'll come over here, activate the default state, go to prototype. That is where we add our component interaction from. Okay, remember we are talking about component interaction. Alright, so that's where we add our interaction or our animation from prototype. So you open prototype. Alright, then with this activated, there are different ways you can connect this. So you can go to add interaction. I'm going to add an interaction here, and then trigger is going to be while hovering. Okay, so while hovering, what do I want to happen? I want the action to change to, all right, while hovering, that's while I hover on this button, it should change to the variant state. So I'll come over here and change it from default state to hover state. Okay, while hovering, change to hover state, and I want it to be instant. All right, so yeah, that's about it. So if I come over here now and I hover on this should, I think I'm going to reload that, right, to apply the changes. Okay, so while I hover on that, it's supposed to change. Okay, so if I hover on that, you see it changes to the variant state. By default, this is the default state, but once I hover on it, it changes to the variant. While my mouse leaves it, it returns to the default state. So this is the hover state or hover effect or hover animation we create using component interaction. Okay, so we can, I'm going to create another type of interaction, another type of animation using component and variant. I'm going to design a quick toggle switch using component and variant. So let's do that quickly. I'll pick a rectangle and draw my rectangle over there. I'll go to the properties and add a full corner radius of 50 on both sides, and I'm going to add gray color on it. Right, and then I'm going to add a bit of effect, drop shadow x and y 00, and then I'll add spread it out a bit. Okay, and I reduce this to 16. All right, spread this out. Okay, now I'm going to add a circle and ellipse, so I'm going to draw an ellipse there. Okay, right there, and then I will add a darker gray here. So I'm going to come here and add another gray color there. Okay, now the text is optional. All right, I don't want to add the text here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this and then apply auto layout. Okay, auto layout. You can use Shift A, or you can just use that to apply auto layout on your toggle switch animation. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to convert this to a component and add variant. Okay, add a variant to it. Remember, component and variants, these are what we use to create animations or interaction between components. So there must be a default component and one or two variants for that to work. So after adding variant, what I'm going to do is I'll come to this variant, select this and change the color to a different color, my primary color. That's what makes it a variant. Okay, the properties have to be different. Also, I'm going to move it a bit to the right. Okay, I think I'm going to ignore auto layout here a bit and then move it to the right hand side. All right, yeah, so that is it. If I want, I can even change the color here, but I think I'm just going to leave it like that. Or let me experiment with that. I'll come over here, double click on the container and check can I get a different color from here. All right, so let me try that. So instead I'm going to use white here. Okay, so look at this now. We are done with the design. Now I want to add the animation, so I'll go to prototype once again. This time I'm going to use a different method. Instead of adding interaction from here, which is a very good method, instead I'm going to drag from here. All right, under prototype, just come over to your default component and drag it. All right, now I forgot to rename this. Let's go and rename it before we return to the interaction. So I'll come here and call it the default state, and then I'll rename this as the toggle state. All right, default state and toggle state. Then return to prototype and continue. Yeah, so after connecting this to the toggle state, the trigger should not be on, okay, it should be on tab actually. All right, on tab, change to toggle state instant. Now I'm not going to use instant. Instead I'm going to use smart animate. All right, on tab, change to toggle state smart animate for it to animate quickly. All right, then the duration 300 milliseconds, which is okay. Yeah, I can also connect this back to the default state. Then I'm going to make it on tab, change to default state smart animate is out 300, which is good. Okay, so we are done with our animation. So I'm going to go to asset now. All right, created in this file, and then design system. I have a page called design system, and then I'm going to look for my toggle state toggle my frame here, frame 51. I didn't name it actually, so I'm going to call it toggle switch. Okay, toggle switch. So I'm going to look for toggle switch, and right there it is. So I'll drag it and bring it all the way to, it's going to be quite large. Okay, I'll add it to my page right here so that I can test it. So yeah, here is my toggle switch. All right, so if I tap on that now, it's going to turn on or switch off. All right, so that's how we create simple interactions or even complex interactions and animations using components and variants. So we call this micro interaction in Figma. So micro interactions are what help us to add interaction, or what helps default interactions to animate to interact with their variants, and they are used to create very nice animations while designing a prototype. Okay, you can design a drop down list, you can design an animated card, an animated carousel, a button, and other types of animation using interaction or micro interaction under prototype. All right, so you can take your time, play around with this, study this, and then you get used to other options. Like we have other options down here. All right, so we're going to talk more about this in our subsequent videos. So I'll see you in the next video.